everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. Today I am here with my February reading wrap up. And I didn't read as many books as I normally read. One, February is a shorter month, but also it was just a weird month. Yeah, my mood was weird, so that's all I can say. I read 7 books this month, and I do tend to get quite chatty about the books that I've read, so let's get started. The first book that I finished in February was New York to Dallas. This is book number 33 in the In Death series, and this has been one of my favorite books so far. It delves a little bit deeper into Dallas's backstory. If you don't know, the In Death series follows Detective Eve Dallas, who lives in a kind of not too distant future, and she has a very interesting backstory with a lot of trauma in it, and I really like the installments in the series that focus on that story, because I think that Nora Roberts handles it really well. The next book that I finished in February was American Love Story by Adriana Herrera. And now I have finished reading all the books in the Dreamer series that she has. So in this particular book, we follow Patrice and Easton. Patrice is a professor, and Easton is an assistant district attorney. One of the main conflicts in the story is over the fact that Patrice is very aware of social issues, very active in the community, especially in terms of talking about police arrests, police stops, police brutality against the Black and Latinx people. And Easton is an assistant district attorney, the acting district attorney at the time, and he has to balance a lot of the politics around it, and the fact that he is not in what is his permanent job. He's just the acting district attorney. And yet the chemistry that these two men have pulls them together and basically forces them to confront their differences and to figure out how they can build a relationship when something that is so important to both of them puts them into conflict. And I just loved this book. I will have more things to say about the whole Dreamer series, and a little bit more of other things that Adriana Herrera has written in an upcoming video, because I do plan on doing a dedicated review just talking about Adriana Herrera's books, and so you watch out for that. The next book that I finished in February was Once Upon a Quinceañera by Monica Gomez. That I really enjoyed it. It's a book that focuses around a quinceañera and two families that kind of are having a lot of conflict, have had a lot of conflict. There's a lot of history of conflict here. And if you have ever been around a quinceañera, you know that quinceañeras do not help anyone really solve conflicts. Well, they can, but it also just exacerbates any problems going on in the family, in the community, and individuals. It's a shit show. And I personally related very much to that. I do not have a quinceañera because I was in a quinceañera. I was a dama for my friend, and oh my goodness, those quinceañera practices were wild. And so I felt like I was there for all the practices in this story. The main character in this story is a bit prickly, but I loved her because she has gone through some trauma in her life, but she has learned from it, and she hasn't entirely learned the wrong lessons. I felt like she was very justified in her actions, that she was being really smart, but as a result was not being vulnerable enough and open to love and blah blah blah. Anyways, I like this main character more. You'll see me talking about this book more because I enjoyed it. The next book that I finished in February was Transcendent Kingdom by Gyasi. This is the second published novel by her. I did read her first one, Homegoing. It's somewhere behind me. And this one was different. It focuses on a family that has immigrated to the U.S. from Ghana. And you see kind of the struggles that they go through especially with depression and with drug addiction. And so those are two big content warnings, because those are major themes of the story. In the story, we're going back and forth from the main character is the daughter in the family who is doing her PhD now, and we get to see flashbacks of when like the family first migrated, and we get to hear her tell us about why, and what life for her mother and father was like back in Ghana, and why the move ended up being so difficult. And it's just I found it to be quite emotional and quite powerful, and I just overall really enjoyed it. But it is a book that I think you have to go in prepared for a lot of the deep dark topics that it covers. Like, it really gets into the effects of deep severe depression, what those are in the family, death that occurs. There's abandonment, there is racism, sexism, and it's just, I thought, really well written here. The next book that I finished in February was The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This is an incredible book, and it's like one of the few books that I've read and I just have felt like I'm not ready to talk about this book. I need to read it at least one more time, maybe two more times. It's just that kind of book where it has a lot to dissect. And Toni Morrison is just an incredible writer, and I feel like she writes with so much emotion. Like I feel like I connect to a lot of the emotion that she writes. And in here, it's a story that is a lot about beauty and how we define beauty in a patriarchal and racist society. And I just found it to be very good. I think I might still like Beloved a little bit better, but I also haven't read Beloved in over a decade, so I might need to go back and read that one at some point. The next book I finished in February was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert, because after all those really heavy books, I really needed something lighter, and this was just the perfect thing. Talia Hibbert is really great. Like, to me, her writing just sparkles. The chemistry jumps off the page. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's so good. In this story, we are following, Dani, of course, and the love interest is Saf. So Dani is a black woman living in Britain, and Saf is a Muslim man, former rugby player. I think he's a rugby player who's now a security guard, and they've had like a flirtatious, like hello kind of relationship. And almost friendship developing there when Dani and Saf are photographed in a kind of romantic setting, and a social media response with a hashtag and with people being really interested in them. And it turns out that is really good for the charity that he's trying to get off the ground, and so they begin fake dating. And I love fake dating romances, and it's just so cute. I really enjoy it. I really am enjoying this series by Talia Hibbert, and I actually can't wait to keep reading more of her books. The third one in the series is coming up, so I feel like I read this one right in time. Right in time for that one. Okay, the last book that I read in February was Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, and this is an amazing book. If you haven't yet watched my update to A Historian Reads Historical Fiction, I go a little bit more in depth there. In here, I will just leave it at, this is a book about a family. We begin the story during the Japanese occupation of Korea. We're following this Korean family. We follow them into Japan and World War II in Japan, and then the Korean War, and then just the post-war world in Japan and a little bit in the US. It's just the way the characters are written, the way that we are placed in a very specific time and place that feels so real. was just really fantastic. There are content warnings in this book. Let's see, for death. We see several deaths in here with a. How do I characterize it? There's a relationship here with a significant age disparity. There is drug use. There is allusions to sex work. There is a relationship that is not just an age disparity. I would call it pedophilia. Tons of racism towards Koreans, and I just there were things that were a little bit tricky, complex at the end, that I think some people will not like, but I was just so into the story of each and every single character. And because you're following a family through various generations, that's actually kind of hard to do, to feel invested in every member of the family as the generation evolves, and you transition from focusing on one generation and moving into the next one. And I just thought that this was just so beautifully written, and I think all of the praise for this book is so earned. It's also a book that I'd been intimidated by when I'd seen it in the past, and I read it with my friend who is living in Seoul and is Korean, and she just was sharing some of her family stories with me. I'm so grateful that I was able to read this book with my friend. It was an amazing experience all around. So that is it. Those are the books that I read in February. I finished one on March 1st at like 1:30 a.m. So I could have added it in here, but I think I'm going to leave that one for the next wrap up while I process that book and its ending. But let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you have any thoughts on my reviews of them, any you'd like to hear more about. Leave that all down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.